So welcome everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Megillat Kohelet, and I'm the Director of Development for the Schechter Institute. I have a big shoes to fill today as I'm hosting instead of Rabbi David Belinking, who is on his way flying back from New York after spending the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur over there. So I hope I will be gracious enough as he is. And of course, excuse my English and my Israeli accent. But I'm very excited, very happy to have you here today for our starting to be traditional Zooming before the holidays. And today we're Zooming into Sukkot. And with no further ado, I'd like to give Rabbi Benjamin Segal. He's the past president of the Schechter Institute, and he's also the author of Kohelet's Pursuit of Truth, to start his presentation. Thank you so much.
We're on to all of you in advance, and I hope I remember at the end to wish you a Chag Sameach. It's very nice to be here. I am by degree a rabbi, and we always like to talk, so you can imagine what kind of mood I'm in. Here I am, people listening. Tonight, this evening, there's a wonderful schedule, different aspects of Sukkot and contemplation. My particular session deals with the connection, as will the next, in a different way, of Kohelet, or the book of Ecclesiastes, and Sukkot, particularly in my slot in terms of the category of joy. Prior to telling what I'll cover, a terminology issue. I will try to be careful and use the word Ecclesiastes for the name of the book. And I will try to use and remember to use Kohelet as the name of the person who speaks 95% of the book. He is a person in the book. If I slip, someone correct me, but we will, otherwise it becomes confusing. The association of, we'll start with the association of the holiday of Sukkot with the book of Ecclesiastes. From there, we will go to why people suggest in broad terms why the two are connected, leading to the possible connection of happiness in both the text and the holiday of Sukkot. At that point, I will deal a little bit with happiness in Jewish tradition, a little bit with Kohelet as such, and then happiness or joy in Kohelet, and perhaps what one might think about during the holidays. We probably have too many people to interrupt. I'm not good at looking at chats while I talk. If I end early, and if you have a question, maybe put it in a chat, maybe I'll relate to it, but I can't promise. Time is short, and there are a lot of people here. So here we go. I promised another person in Schechter Institute to remind or to tell people. There are two things that could fill in beyond tonight's session. One is, of course, to read my book on the subject, which is sold through Schechter. It is also sold through Amazon Book Depository and such things. It is called Kohelet's Pursuit of Truth, under my name. And if anyone is interested in another aspect of all this, which is reacting to the book of Kohelet, not studying it, but reacting to the claims and life and author of Kohelet for 6 weeks, the way the author hoped people would discuss and react, that is going to be a course offered by the Schechter Adult Institute, which if you'll type into Schechter Institute, you'll find under their adult education advertisement. I should say, please, I have no royalties, and I am teaching the course as a volunteer subject, so it's not a self-interest issue. It's a wonderful book to read. Now, let's go on. So we will do, as I said, the association with of Ecclesiastes with Sukkot first. In the 8th century of our era, in the book Maseches Sofrim, it is sort of a post-Talmudic, late Talmudic, sort of post-Talmudic text. There's an indication that the 5 books, which we call scrolls, Megillot, are to be read on particular holidays. Some of this is quite obvious. Esther tells the story of Purim. We should read Esther. Lamentations tells of the destruction of the temple, belongs on Tisha B'Av. To other kind of fit the seasons, the Song of Songs is highly dealing with nature, and a lot of it, not all of it, with early spring. It fits Passover. And Ruth fits the agricultural cycle, also possibly her acceptance of Torah or acceptance of Jewishness, parallel to the acceptance of Torah on Mount Sinai. That leaves one more book, the book of Ecclesiastes and the holiday of Sukkot, which don't really seem to match. Okay? Why then did it happen? There are many theories, and some of them are really beautiful. I have a feeling that if the second session today, you will have in much greater depth one such view of the connection. But just in a general manner of speaking, as the things that I've learned over the years, one of the theories, teachers at the Jewish Theological Seminary said, well, you only had one left over, and you only had one holiday out there, it's Sukkot, so let's put it in there. That's one way to do it. There are theories, there are parallels. The Sukkot is not very permanent. The book of Ecclesiastes kind of says nothing is permanent. It's all hevel, vanity, or fleeting wind, if you will. There's another possible parallel that I deal with today, and that both seem to dwell upon happiness. The word here is simcha, not other words. And there are theories that there's a counterweight going on here, that the author of Ecclesiastes is seeking something permanent. And yet on Sukkot, we run out to seek that which is not permanent. We move out to the house which is not. So there are various theories. We tonight will be dealing with one possible connection, and that is the connection of happiness. I should also note, by the way, that of my scrolls, this is the least read. Most Sephardim do not read Ecclesiastes on Sukkot. And even within Sephardim Ashkenazi, there are groups in each group that behave oppositely. It is not read universally on Sukkot. My congregation does. I recommend it to you highly. Okay, let's now get to, in turn, happiness, first in other sources in the Bible, second, the book of Kohelet, and then happiness in Kohelet, and we'll see what comes. Happiness is a good name in Judaism. It's from Hasidic songs from Rabbi Nachman, mitzvah gdol simcha. It's a great mitzvah to live or be in your life. We sing all the time. Every time a holiday comes with samachta b'chagecha, even if it's not from the source of the holiday. Simcha, it's a good thing. Simcha. Simcha la'artsecha, we sang together whenever the cantor said it in the Yom Kippur liturgy. Let's go back, though, not to Hasidic, all the way back to Torah. Where is simcha in the Torah? Now, be careful. I'm not saying happiness in the Bible. There are various words for happiness. There's a very heavy word for happiness called ashrei. That's mostly in Psalms, and it is a really deep satisfaction, peace with life, complete. That's also called happiness, but that's not. Simcha is closer to cheer, good times. Going back to the Torah, 3 times it's personal. Avimelech says it to Abraham, and says it to Moses. A soldier who's just married doesn't have to go to the army for a year so he can make his wife happy. That's the simcha, right? Most of the Torah deals with, you might say, sacrifice and holidays. The truth of the matter is, most of those references are to food. V'samachta b'chagecha, and the simcha is mentioned all the time with sacrifices, probably means something like eating meat. And you should enjoy yourself and have a good time. Difference of opinion in translations in the Bible. The Jewish translation, JPS, says you should be happy in your holidays, thinking it means you're taking delight in the fact that it's a holiday. But the NRSV, the Revised Standard Version, is better, more exact. He said you should be happy during your holidays. During your holidays, eat meat, eat wine. And when you come to Psachim and they deal with the Samachta B'chagecha, they also say it's wine, and Psachim, part of the Talmud, or it's meat. They also have the possibility of meat. That's what it's there back there. We're jumping back now to a part of the Bible in which is really something else, and that is in the book of Kohelet. Clearly, the Torah says v'samachta b'chagecha in relation to Sukkot and one other holiday, but basically it seems to deal with Sukkot. And it is a major word in Kohelet, as we shall see. Before we look at where it happens in Kohelet, a few words about the book of Ecclesiastes, about the Ecclesiastes. Must be right in our terminology. Ecclesiastes is this scroll. If you have been told or grew up understanding that King Solomon wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, I don't mean to be ultra critical, but it can't be. The Hebrew of Ecclesiastes is late Hebrew well into the Second Temple period. No one in Shakespeare's time could write in 20th century, 21st century English. It can be. So too, Solomon could not write the Hebrew of the book of Kohelet of Ecclesiastes. Couldn't be. It is a Second Temple book. It is very clearly influenced by questions that are also being asked in the beginning of Greek philosophy. That is, I'm not saying it is Greek philosophy. Be careful, okay? It is using the same questions that you find in Greek philosophy. These are the beginning ages of Stoicism and Epicureanism, just like Kohelet, which is the only book in the Bible which concentrates on I, me. I will determine what truth is. I will find it. That is the basis of very different approaches, Stoicism, Epicureanism, and the questions are the same. The answers are not. Absolutely not. And there is no way to categorize the book of Ecclesiastes as part of Greek philosophy. Doesn't work. People have tried. And when they try, they fail. Trust me, read more in my books if you would, it doesn't work. What is that? Is it a book of philosophy? Jewish philosophy? No, it's even not. A book of philosophy, by its very nature, has to avoid contradictions. That would be a poor book of philosophy. If I say one thing on one page and 40 pages later say something else, let alone 10 contradictions. It is not a book of philosophy. It is a story, a novel. It is structured very clearly as a novel. Someone introduces the character of Kohelet and summarizes his life at the end. And then you have 3 sections which trace Kohelet's life. One, Kohelet himself makes up a story about himself. I was once a king. I was the richest person on earth. I knew more than anything on than anyone else on earth. Let me tell you about what I know. Part 1. With poems that themselves will prove not clear in the second part of Kohelet. He goes out in the world. He is no longer pretending he's a king. And he now goes through a series of 6 recorded time experiments. Every one of them starts with the word experience and ends, watch with this word, with the word joy. Experience, ending joy. Experience, ending joy. I'm not the only person who says it. There's another guy in France who came up with that theory first. And then at the end, part 3, he's approaching death. Very clear this is a book where he writes something, he experiences life, shares his experience, and then talks about the approaching death. It's almost a novel of a biography, a wonderful book. And when you read a biography, change becomes exciting. When somebody changes or contradicts what he said before, then it's a moment of joy. Look, why, how, what's happened, okay? That is the book of Kohelet. It is a book full of change. Let me just show you. I'll have to do this quickly because I don't want to run out of time. Let me see where we get here. Watch, I don't see your faces now, but trust. These are items of change in the book of Kohelet, just to illustrate. I'll run right down the word anguish. That's my translation for re'ut ruach. It disappears halfway through the book. I, concentration he has on I, disappears in 12 chapters. You, he's talking more about only starts in 4. What advantage? That's what's important for him, but only in the first half of the book. It disappears. Shifts. The heart, for the heart, which in Bible is the focus of thought more than anything else. Emotion is in the kidneys, and the brain doesn't exist. In the first half, focuses on learning, declaring, and searching. Later, it's on joy. Vapor, which is what other translations call vanity, nothingness. Vapor is literally a breath. You can't hold it, and in time it disappears before you know it's there. It moves, describes a terrible thing along, and then by the end, about pew or vapor. Advice moves. First he says advantages, then he says, well, it's better to do certain things, and finally he tells you what to do. Sun changes radically. In the beginning, it's just permanence, whether it's bad or good, it's there, keeps coming. Then it's a limited field of vision. He only sees what's under the sun. And finally, it's a source of pleasure, the heat and the absence of death, which is called darkness. Metaphors, which are personal, are almost absent from the first half, apart from the word vapor, then grow exponentially until the end, in which they explode all over the book. And stark contradictions. In the beginning, it says, I will apply my heart. I'm going to find out what wisdom is. And by the end, towards the second half, he says, I would like to be wise. I can't. I don't know how to be wise. Good heart. In the beginning, he says it comes through anger. In the end, it says it comes through drinking. I'm not making that up. Life. First, he says better dead. Then he says, what, is it better even to be stillborn? And then later he says, better to be a live dog than a dead lion. Women are first more bitter than death, and then experience life with the woman you love. Man's spirit in the end, in the beginning, he asks in a rhetorical question if it rises, meaning it doesn't. At the end of the book, the last thing he says, the spirit returns to God who gave it. We'll talk about joy in a second. So it's quite clear. The book is filled with change. If I had to summarize it, it's a man who gets older. He's becoming much more concerned with death. He is less concerned with himself than other people. He's no longer concerned with telling you dry facts, but what you should do and what might be better than other things. He is interested in metaphor, which is poetry, teaching when you try to teach meaningfully, that is absent from the beginning. This is a man who is growing. He's becoming more traditional as he goes along. Please be careful. You'll read my book if you want. I can't say more than this. I'm not saying that the end is better than the beginning. You might read the book of Ecclesiastes and say he became scared of his own conclusions and he stepped back from being honest. You can say that if you want. Or you can say he grew up and grew wiser. That's for you as the reader to read. And if we go in the course, we will argue out what he might have meant. I'm not saying it changes for better or worse, but change he does. He grows. He's a different human being. Okay? And all that is background to what we will look at now, and that is joy in Ecclesiastes, because just like everything else, joy develops. Not quite as much as some other things. I mean, he says life is horrible. I'd rather be dead. And then he says, there's nothing better than life. Better a live dog than a dead lion, right? But joy is a much more complex subject, and it is possibly the connection to why this is read on the holiday of Sukkot. Sukkot is the holiday of joy. And now, is Kohelet there to tell us what joy is really like? Joy in Ecclesiastes. There's a lot of stuff here. We're not going to do it all. I have a bunch of stars here. The first four all come from the first section of the book, which deals with what his insight as the rich king. All right. In the beginning, you can see in verses 2, 1, and 2, it doesn't. What is enjoyment? Look at the end. What does it accomplish? There's nothing to it. There's nothing to it. 2:10, enjoyed everything, and then look at 2:11 right after. It's vapor. It's anguish. There's no advantage. This joy. It doesn't do it. But as he comes toward the end of, even within this first section, he sorts of steps back, and we're going to see it again in the second section. Look, he's given wisdom and knowledge and enjoyment to the man who's good in his presence. It's sort of a gift from God. And he'll say in 3:12, still in that summary of what he knows, I know there's nothing better within this than enjoying and acting beneficially in his lifetime. Any man who consumes and drinks sees benefit. It's a gift from God. So he's moved even in this first section. You have this kind of guy. He experimented. He concluded joy is not worth anything. And then, sure enough, by the end, sort of saying, you know what? It's what you got. You should maybe do it. And then we look through the series of experiences. I marked them. I'm a little anal, so I put all the joys in here, but we'll just look at the last sentence of the 6 sections. A, I saw there's nothing better than a man who enjoys it. That's what he's got. Who knows left? It's a hell of a weak reason, but take it. B, Any man whom God gives wealth and power, property, etc., and to enjoy the fruits of his toil, that's a gift, right? Why? 19. For he will not brood much over the days of his life, because God keeps him concerned with his heart's enjoyment. Why should he be joyful? It keeps you from thinking about the rest of the stuff. Right? Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. C. We're moving along through the 6. He says, on a good day experience, we saw before good life and joy are synonyms. Bad day, just live with it, but when you get it, you get it. D. He's moving along. He's coming to recommend it. So I commended the joy. There's nothing better. There's nothing better than to eat, drink, be joyful. That can stay with you while he's already recommending the stuff. And on the 5th, go and look at this section. Is too long to read all at once, but look at it briefly on your screen. Go, eat, drink, white clothes, get married, enjoy. That's what you have. That's what you can do. Go for this joy. And you kind of wonder in this book, which so dwells on how nothing is worthwhile, how big is this? It's like the small counterweight or big counterweight. And F, 11:7, which is the end of the 6th, even if a man goes many, take joy in it. Do it. Well, remember the days of darkness, which will be, because after this, there's nothing else. And then in the beginning of the final thing on death, the very first thing he says, take joy, O youth, in your earliest days. Let your heart be good to you in the days of your youth, and walk in the paths of what your eyes can see. God's going to judge you. All right. This is, I have to leave it to you. Is this a big recommendation for joy? Does it appeal? Is this what they meant? Is this a joy, perhaps a counter to the joy of Sukkot? And if you're getting drunk on Simchat Torah, hey guys, take it easy. Have for the moment, but it's not really the end all be all of all that you have. I don't think I have time. Who's the French? Did I refer to a French philosopher? Someone asked. French philosopher.
No, I think you just mentioned a book of philosophy and why Kohelet is not a book of philosophy, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Same idea on joy. Nobody has a Kohelet's idea on joy. If that was a question, or so that there was a question there. Nobody has Kohelet's idea on joy. It is so unique. I'm looking quick at the who wrote Ecclesiastes. We don't know. Someone asked. We don't know. And those seem to be the messages, unless I missed some. I think that's it. Let me just end illustrating to you what we're going to do when we come to joy in this discussion class. There's my book on Kohelet. I believe that Kohelet just begs for huge numbers of reaction. So unlike all of my other biblical commentaries, I have a whole section at the end of modern poetry and prose, which reacts to Kohelet. Bad, good, etc., and so forth. And I even list questions. Would Kohelet have written what he did if he were married, if he had children, etc.? That's for the course, if anyone wants to take that discussion course. But one of the most impressive pieces at the back is by Rabbi Karl Bach. This is Yosef Tzvi Karl Bach. I won't quote it because I'll run over time. Who dies in the Shoah, dies in the Holocaust. All right. And he writes this praise of Kohelet, in which he says basically, every time I'm depressed, I read Kohelet and I learn again that I'm not alone in suffering and in seeing all the bad in the world. And Kohelet teaches me that I must seize joy when I can. I almost cry when I read this stuff. It is the most complex and moving testimony to joy and Kohelet I know. It is worthwhile. If you can read my book, read my book. If you don't read the book of Kohelet. Remember, it's a biography. If you take the conversation course, I promise you, no one will be told who's right or wrong. We're going to react to what Kohelet says. But it is a wonderful, I think one of the greatest gifts we have with the holidays is that someone, for some reason, whatever it was, said to us when you're take the time, Saturday afternoon, take the book, read it, and think about it. Confront this incredibly complex man who could say, be joyful in a way that is different than probably anything we thought about before. I apologize we couldn't exchange. I never teach like this, but that is the nature of a large attendance at a group. And I do apologize to all of you. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Thank you so much, Rabbi Benjamin. I will say that for me, for sure, reading the book of Kohelet in the upcoming holiday will be different now after hearing some of the stories and your commentary on it. Thank you very, very much.